son had many questions, and so the son asked the questions, Dad, what does Samuel look like? What kind of man is he? And then the father was able to explain that he would be dressed in priestly robes. He would be dressed and would be able to tell who he was by what he was wearing, the white garments of a priest. And that he would also share with him that the time that he had seen Samuel before was when Samuel was much younger and had been brought up in the house of Eli and had been given to the Lord to be a prophet of God by his mother who was so happy to finally be able to have a child. And so she prayed to God for this child, for Samuel, and she promised God that Samuel would be given then to his kingdom, to work in his kingdom. Now Israel at this particular time was in the promised land. The promised land that had been told to Abraham, and then through the ages, now had been given to them. The story, of course, involved over 300 years of being slaves in Egypt, but then under the leadership of first Moses and then Joshua, they had gone into the promised land. But they had not defeated all of the people, and all of the land was not theirs. And so the son then asks the question, why are we meeting today? Why are the people of God called to be at the feet of Samuel? And the father explained that Samuel had been preaching to his people that they needed to ask God for forgiveness and for strength and for help. You see, what had happened, he explained, is that we have been defeated for years by the Philistines. And the last time that we were in this battle with the Philistines, the one that was the most destructive to us, we actually tried to use the ark of God, to lead us and to be out there and to be in front so that we would be successful in defeating the Philistines. But God turned his head, son. He turned his head. And the reason that he did is that this ark was wonderful and it was strong, but the people were not. The people had defied Christ. They had defied God. Excuse me, Jehovah. And so at this particular point then, what was happening was a new time, a new experience, a new challenge. And the people were being brought together and they were listening to Samuel. And the son and the father became part of the crowd. And Samuel was offering a sacrifice, and scouts came over the hill, coming towards them, saying and told them that the Philistines were coming. The Philistines were coming, and the people were very scared and very worried. But Samuel said, "The Lord will protect us," and he continued with his offering and offered the lamb and the prayers to God. And as the time that the Philistines surrounded them, at that time the Philistines surrounded them, and God sent thunder and lightning. Now here in the Midwest, we know what thunder and lightning sounds like. But there it sounded even more because it was a holy thunder and lightning, so destructive and so powerful that the Philistines fled. And at that particular time, the army of the Israelites followed and caught many and destroyed, taking the life of the evil ones that were threatening them. Which brings us then to the time which Samuel says there needs to be in his mind, there needs to be something which we honor in which we give praise to God. And this is our theme verse today. It is found in Samuel 7:12. Let's take a look at it. Samuel then took a large stone. He placed it between the towns of Mizpah and Jeshanah. He named it Ebenezer, which means the stone of help. For he said, up to this point the Lord has helped us. Up to this point the Lord has helped us. And from that time on, the ark which had been given had been brought into battle years before, brought into battle, was supposed to be a good luck piece, was supposed to protect them. That ark had fallen into the hands of the Philistines. God had the last laugh because in the hands of the Philistines, the ark brought all kinds of difficulties to the Philistines. Boils, mice, rats. And so the Philistines first of all, they put the ark next to their God, and going to sleep, they came back the next morning, and their God had fallen over. So they put him upright. They made everything correctly in place. They went to sleep. The next morning they came back, and not only had their God fallen over, but the head was cut off and the hands were cut off. Finally, giving up, they understood that this ark was powerful and was something that they had to get rid of because of the problems that they were having. And so they sent it back to the children of Israel. And at the time that we just discussed, as far as this great thunder and lightning coming down, the ark was now with the Israelites. And the ark again became to have, it always had power, but it became to have its true power because it no longer was looked at as, a lucky piece, but rather it was looked at as God's presence is really here. So when we look at the theme verse and we take and understand what this meant for Ebenezer, this rock to be put up, it meant that they totally understood that the power of God is something that is available and is there if people's thoughts and concerns and understanding of Jehovah, of God, is one in which they truly believe, and false gods are thrown away. So, brings us to our situation, and our Ebenezer, and to the question, who has been your Ebenezer? When we take a look at life and the people that we meet in it, and the reasons and the encouragement that we receive from different people as far as strength, I ask you to think back and see which of those immediately pop in your mind as those that were faithful to you, those that were encouraging to you, those that you perhaps owe a lot as far as the direction that you took, or the extent, or the overcoming difficulties in your life. I'd like to share with you one of my Ebenezers. I think perhaps the one that I almost recognized at first. When I was in grade school, my father was on the school board. And one evening he came in the house, and he said, "I think we have found the teacher, the principal that we need." Well, I was either in the 5th or 6th grade, and so I said, okay, all right, we got a new teacher. And the teacher, I found out, had been sort of semi-retired. He had been in teaching for, I think, about 20 years, and then came back to Missouri and was running a hardware store with his brother. Our little school, Holy Cross Lutheran School, with about 60, 70 students in it, had been having some difficulties as far as having a stable principal and also someone who knew things as far as education was concerned. And Dad said, and I will always remember this, Dad said, Principal Mentman, or Teacher Mentman, has what it takes. I didn't know exactly what that meant, but he said he has what it takes. Here's what I remember, though. Besides an excellent teacher, besides a real understanding and a real a desire to encourage learning and education, I remember him for all of that, but I also remember him for every recess being outside, either coaching or playing or umping with us, and it was in Missouri, and so we didn't play baseball, but we played softball. And we were able to spend those 20 minutes with him encouraging or umping, or as sometimes we would actually have practice, and we were able to see him as a person outside of the classroom. I also remember that before school would start, he would have checkers out, and in his office, he would invite people in if they were there early, and he would invite us in for a game of checkers. Teacher amendment. I never remember beating him, by the way, in checkers. I do remember this, though. I remember that when I made a decision, or I thought that this is what God had intended for me to do in 8th grade, I went in to see him, and I said, I am going to be going to Concordia High School in Seward, Nebraska. And he talked about it, and he was glad that I told him. But what was really interesting to me, and I was almost embarrassed by it, is that as I told him, tears started rolling out of my eyes. I have no idea why. Tears started rolling out of my eyes, and it was almost impossible for me to speak. Because I think at that moment, what he meant to me and the decision that I was making fit together, and it was, I understood, you know, I might not be doing this, I might not be going this direction, becoming a teacher as I told him I was going to become, if it hadn't been for you throwing a softball back and correcting me on the papers that I turned in, and being a wonderful Ebenezer. So for you, and for the Ebenezers that you have, let's take a look at what is needed for an Ebenezer. I'd like to introduce you to a Maddie Rigby. She's 78 years old. She's a widow. She has 2 grown children. They don't have any, they're not married, so that she has no grandchildren. And she thinks that her life is probably pretty much to the end, and so I was wondering whether or not she has the abilities to, you know, to keep going, or if she's getting into dementia or something like that. But then, in church, she hears this wonderful service, this wonderful sermon about reaching out to those that have less. And coincidentally, she has the opportunity to take a 15-year-old juvenile delinquent, orphan, by the name of Wesley, into her household. Her children say, don't do that, don't do that. It's an interesting. Let's take a look.
Let's go fishing. Huh? Fishing. Can't take these. Thought we'd catch ourselves some dinner.
Oh, I don't feel much like fishing. Thought I might just take a bath.
Hey, you just had a bath.
I'm real stinky again.
Nobody gets stinky that fast. Besides, I need you to drive the boat.
Drive the... Oh, yeah, I can't get in that thing.
Why not?
I'm afraid of the water.
You what?
I'm afraid of the water.
You're afraid of the water? You mean you can't swim? How do you grow up not being able to swim? Why, my folks had me out there when... Yes. Here.
I said I can't swim!
Move your arms in circles like this. And kick your legs. Almost like you're running in place.
Somebody help me!
Dinner, come take a look at this. I think she's finally lost it.
She probably just exercising. Maybe you should try it.
That's it. Okay, keep your arms going. Come on, come on. Feet and arms, both. Keep them going.
I'm doing it! I'm swimming!
You can stand up now. There. Now you know how to swim.
What an Ebenezer, huh? Yeah. Well, the movie is a good movie. Apparently based on, at least a lot of it is a real true story. It's very difficult to walk into anybody's life, and I admire her for doing this in the real story of life. It's very, very difficult. At the same time, that is what God calls us to do.